You know what redlining is?
Yes, I do.
Redlining is?
I do not.
Redlining?
I do know about redlining.
Do you know what redlining is?
No, I do not.
In your best words, can you try to describe redlining?
It's a practice of discrimination in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and even up to today. There's some argument that redlining still occurs. It's where people of certain races and religions and where they're not allowed to buy homes illegally in certain areas of town. There's a very famous case in Louisville with Mr. Andrew Wade, who was a military veteran in Shively. He was a veteran of World War II. He was African American, and he wanted to live in Shively. He couldn't buy a house in Shively because of redlining and restrictive covenants. And somebody else bought the house for him and let him live in it with his family. You know, he purchased the house from the people who became the shell buyers, and people were so upset about it they blew up the house.
And they still do it today. It's the way they keep people out of certain neighborhoods. It's if you don't want black people, Mexican people, or people that ain't white, non-whites to live in a certain area, then they make the prices of the homes and everything where they have to keep you out. And they still do the same thing today for real. Because some of the same homes that's out in St. Matthews now, they may cost $225,000. The same homes as a lot of times in the West End. But just because it's in the West, they cheap, but out here it costs more. But they don't want you to live out there, so they increase the price. That's what they do, and they still do it today in a lot of subdivisions that most of us can't afford because they just jack the price up. They don't mean they better homes or such a better place to live, but they just don't want us in.
Gentrification is a social justice issue that ties with racist policies and housing inequality. When people think about gentrification, they mostly think about how one part of the city has less resources than the other part of the city. But it's really about how the neighborhoods are built to keep people of color and people with lower incomes confined in those areas. So with that, it comes in two ways, which is direct and indirect. Direct is when the government goes to the lower income neighborhoods and they fix up the homes and then they raise up the rent and raise up the property value, knowing that people with lower incomes cannot afford that. So that pushes them to move out immediately. Indirect is when people start seeing, you know, people with higher incomes moving into their neighborhoods. They feel isolated. They're seeing all these nice restaurants. They're window shopping, so they don't feel comfortable in their neighborhood. So then they move.
How far away is your local grocery store?
From my own house? About a mile, probably less.
How far is your local grocery store?
Maybe half a mile.
Okay.
Shoot, the grocery store was a long way away. The real grocery store was probably, you had to catch the L to get to it, so it was probably maybe 15, 20 minutes away.
How far is your local grocery store from your house?
5 minutes away.
The 9th Street divide was basically West Louisville and East Louisville, split right down the middle. So the west side would have like no buildings and just empty parking lots. And the east side would have a bunch of buildings and it would be super busy because it was just like the populated side of town. It pretty much separates Black Louisville to the west from White Louisville to the east. And the life expectancy on the west side of Louisville is about 67 years compared to the east side, which is about 82 years. And that's a 15-year difference.
Are there a lot of businesses and buildings?
No, not really.
Is there a lot of business buildings around your area, stores?
Not very far.
Okay.
Business buildings around you?
It's like Norton's Hospital, then it's a whole bunch of restaurants, and then it's like this ear, nose, and throat doctor, and it's just like, I don't know, it's like this little strip mall kind of just businesses.
Did you see a lot of buildings, like companies in the area?
Companies like, no, ain't no companies in the hood.
Actually, we can definitely do that.
So today I'll be talking about white flight, and essentially what white flight is the large mass of a Caucasian race tends to migrate from neighborhoods that are becoming more and more racially diverse with Black and brown communities. And this all kind of started in northern areas, northern cities, and American, like in American neighborhoods, because once they see Black people and brown people moving in, they don't like that. They don't like it becoming more diverse. They want to be around other white people. And when Black people tend to move in, it kind of decreases the pricing of the houses. And it's kind of all about the appearance. It's like, I want to be around other Caucasians in order to be around people who are like me, who look like me. Which is why there's a clear division between why you see so many white people in suburban neighborhoods and a clear division of Black people who live in the projects or the West End, because there has been a clear division. And also just redlining has influenced it. Race has had a large impact on the percentage of white people who tend to migrate. And it just influences white flight even more, because if the government's lining out the neighborhoods that are bad, of course white people are gonna go where they feel most belonged, I guess. And the fact that it's becoming more racially diverse is just like, oh, that's bad. And the government's mapping out neighborhoods that are good and not good. So essentially white flight is just Caucasian people who flee because of their neighborhood becoming racially diverse.
A lot of white people around your neighborhood?
Yes, they have a very diverse neighborhood.
Okay. Did you see a lot of white people around your area?
Nah. Only white people you seen around the hood, for real, was people that's coming to collect insurance money for them insurance policies back in the day. And then you saw white people, of course, if you went to a store, not in the neighborhood.
Do you see a lot of Black people in your neighborhood?
Yeah, on my block, but in other parts, no.
And do you see a lot of white or Black people in your neighborhood?
It's a mix.
Who was Jim Crow? The Jim Crow persona was a racist theater character created by Thomas D. Rice. During the 19th and 20th centuries, the government legalized racist policies and segregation. Although this ended in 1965, they still have impacts that affect us today.